see, there's a chat window that I can see. So if you have like emergency text that I'm not going to have the mental bandwidth to be able to multitask to that degree, you can still send me an SOS in the insider chat window. Hey, everybody on Facebook Live, my new friends Deepak and Jessica.
Good morning.
And we are going to have a great time today. We've got originally we had 10, and now I think we're down to about 7 back to back, which is only great for me because that's a lot less chaos on my end. And this is just going to be a great lineup for all of you. So Deepak, before I escort you over to the green room, any final words before we jump in with Jessica, the mirror image? I've got a look on my back.
I'm just excited to be here to share with your audience and just to kind of get on with it. So I'm looking forward to watching the show as well as being part of it.
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you are part of the Deepak or the Jessica fan club, we want you to do this. Wiggle your finger over the share button, whether this is something that's a recording or whether this is live, or whether this is almost not live anymore. Just go ahead and share, because this is all about expanding the impact of everybody's talk. And it's also about Talk Universe helping you give your talk to change the world as well. So Deepak, thank you so much. We're going to escort you back. How do I do that? Here's a little red button. Bye-bye, Deepak. All right, he's back in the green room. It's so much fun to do that. I'll tell you what, I am interviewing somebody later this evening in the second group, and there's only 2 in there. But I don't, some of you watching this, you're going to remember the Seinfeld episode where Kramer dumpster dives and he finds the old Merv Griffin set and he recreates that set in his apartment. We are interviewing Alan, who is the stage designer for the Merv Griffin show this evening.
Oh. Goodness, that is very exciting.
Yeah, I love my job because all of these weird little things come back around. So, oh my word. Oh, this is going to be great. So, all right. So we are ready to go with Jessica, and we're going to go live in 3, 2. We are live with Jessica Dumas. Jessica, are you ready to talk?
I am, Nathan. Good morning.
Jessica Dumas is an energetic, motivated, Indigenous entrepreneur. Jessica is a sought-after speaker in the areas of women in business, leadership, and Indigenous inclusion. Jessica is a powerful role model, and she turned a family tragedy into an opportunity for others. Jessica Dumas, welcome to the talk.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited about your show.
So your talk is called A Remarkable Journey of Identity, and it's a semi-biographical account. You talk about your spirit name. You talk about growing up in an area where you were part of the Indigenous community, but it was a minority, and some of the unfortunate harassment that you have undergone, a cop shooting involving possibly a family member, and just a whole lot of challenges, yet you turned us around. So, Jessica, please take us behind the talk.
Sure. So I did the talk in October 2017, so just about a year ago. And when I was asked to do the talk, it wasn't something that I thought that I was ready to do. So it was interesting journey getting to that point to actually being on the stage, and then of course seeing the final product and sharing the story. But what I've also realized is that when it's your story, you think that it's not that big deal. It's not that important. It's just me sort of thing. But it was something that I continuously got asked to share. Tell me about your story, and what I've heard about you is great. And so, a lot of that kind of stuff. And that really was encouraging enough for me to share my story. And one of the things that I do talk about in there is my younger brother, who was 18 years old, and it was 2005, and he was shot by the police in the North End. And out of that came so much of my history, my family's history, and the history of Indigenous people across Canada that I didn't know before then. So that's really kind of the gist of, what is your talk?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's such a timely thing because it's happening more and more and more. Depending on, whatever your views are, I think we can all agree that the media sensationalizes a lot of these things, and they're not having the family's best interests in mind at all. I'm in the United States. We're in the midst of dealing with all of these issues. Jessica, back to you. What is your advice? What is your take on what's going on, and how, more importantly, how did your family be able to heal and add value to others through this tragedy?
Well, my mom is still hurting. And I think as a mother, I don't know if you ever actually stop hurting when you lose a child. So my mom, of course, since then she's gained some grandchildren and, spends as much time with them as possible because, well, anyone that has kids in their life, that they could drive you crazy, but they also make you very happy. So, but a few of the things that I learned for myself was continuously learning more about, like, what is this history? Why didn't I know this? And how can I tell more people? And so I have some training that I offer now, and I go into businesses and organizations and I teach them about the history of Indigenous people in Canada. And one of those demands come from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, called by Indian residential school survivors, and a call to action on learning that history. So that's one of the things that I do, and continuously reaching out and learning and just staying connected with people who are still not really understanding that history. It's really empowering for them and empowering for me when I see that people are learning this information and kind of going, oh, now I understand why some things are the way they are. And now with this information, I can make some better decisions going forward. And so, for example, one of the goals of my work is that if you take some of my workshops, that you will have enough background information now that if you see something on the news or you see a protest or you see someone on the street, now you have more of a foundational, background information to make a more informed opinion.
Absolutely. So you've been able to take these challenges and be able to add value to other people, gain clarity, help us gain clarity. Those of us that are, descendants of immigrants, whether it's 100, 200, 300 years back, as opposed to being native to the land, whether Canada or the United States, you're helping gain clarity in that arena, which is absolutely important, and really takes some of the punch out of the media and the spin that they're trying to always put. And it seems like they're never trying to unify us. What I love about what you're doing, Jessica, you're helping clarify these things to bring people together in businesses so that they can get stuff done together instead of having little micro disputes and polarization and all of that. I want to go back to what you said earlier, because I'd resisted this for a long time, but I have been recently helping a very small group of people prepare for their own talk. And one of the things that I got over and over and over again is, hey, I don't think I really have a talk. And we know, I've got his book right here, the head of TED, Chris Anderson, he says over and over and over again, you have a talk. And you might not have had a tragedy or something, more dramatic like that. You might just have an ordinary experience with a personal twist that appeals to everybody. How do you counsel other people, Jessica, that say, oh, I don't have a talk, or I don't have anything worthwhile to say, or even in your own mind, you had this thing happen, but you couldn't think of a way for a while to be able to articulate that in a way that would help other people? What helped you overcome that, and what do you say to others?
Well, I started my entrepreneurship life as a life coach, and that entire journey has been really trying to identify what is my purpose, and then once you have some idea of what you think that purpose is, what I found for myself is I really had to start to believe in the value that I'm valuable enough, and that I have enough inside of me to live that purpose, and that purpose is meant, specifically for me. And so that's one of the things that I help in coaching. So everyone has experiences, and I remember when I was a teenager, and I would think that I'm not unique in any way, which is hilarious, because I think in high school we want to fit in, we don't want to stand out, but yet we're meant to stand out. And so it's just helping people recognize that that is our value. At any way you're different, that is your value. And your experiences, the way that we experience things, respond to things, everything is completely unique to us. And so helping people really recognize that their perspective is valuable, their feelings are valuable. And that's what a lot of it was for me, is just recognizing that value in yourself and knowing, of course, your story is valuable. And of course, if you've learned something from, whatever experience that this might be, I used to think that, oh, well, everyone must think what I'm saying. But coming to that recognition that no, maybe how you've dealt with this successfully could really help someone. And that's the other thing, is remembering how much people will benefit from hearing your story. So many people are struggling. We don't talk about mental health. We don't talk about the challenges that we go through. Everyone wants to put up this perfect front, and that's not the case. So the more that we talk about our challenges, the more that other people listening are empowered to share their challenges. And that's really how we grow stronger, I believe.
Oh, I love it. So we had a little bit of tech slowdown right there, but Jessica is spot on. Basically, as we recognize and articulate the challenges in our life and how we overcame those challenges, we encourage and give the tools to other people to step up and solve their challenges. Absolutely powerful. We've been talking to Jessica Dumas. Her talk is called A Remarkable Journey of Identity. And we're going to be back with Jessica in just a moment over in the Blitz Round. And we're back with Jessica Dumas. It is time for the Blitz Round. Her talk is called A Remarkable Journey of Identity. And I'm about to ask Jessica a series of either or questions related to the preparation and the performance of her talk. Jessica, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. All right. First talk question. Were you invited to speak, or did you apply?
I was invited to speak.
Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
What is that exactly?
Well,
you know what? Okay, no, I do know an memorizer and an improviser. One thing that I've learned speaking is if you mess up, the audience doesn't know, so you just keep going.
Sounds like an improviser.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, hey, so you walk out on stage, Jessica, and this is TEDx Exchange District. So what city is that in, just to be more specific? Winnipeg. Okay. Yeah. All right. So you walk out on stage. Did you have nerves? Were you in the zone, or neither, or both?
I was very nervous, and I couldn't see anyone. I knew there were people out there, but there was so much light. I couldn't see anyone, and I was very nervous. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons may have been because it was TED, but I think another reason was also because my mom was in the audience for the first time listening to me talk. And so I was very nervous.
Oh, for sure. And the funny thing, when I talk to people, some of us that have done a lot of performing before, we know that the lights are there. And then if you haven't, you don't think about the lights necessarily. And if we don't expect the lights, and then the lights kind of freak us out. If we do expect the lights, in my case, I walk out on stage and I could see the people because there was so much ambient light. So it usually throws you either way, folks. Yeah. Jessica, you had your mother in the audience, you were kind of releasing this story, this tragedy, and what you did with it kind of for the first time in this kind of a setting. What was a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
What was a tip, tool, or technique? One of the techniques that I learned or practice was really just to trust that I know my own story, because I mean, if you're going out to speak on an issue, well, of course you shouldn't be speaking on an issue that you don't know about, but sometimes you're challenged to do something that you're not completely familiar with, and you totally get mixed up. But once you realize when you're talking about your own story, you're doing your own work, and you trust that you know your stuff, so just giving yourself that credit, then it releases some of that nerve. So, for example, there was a little part where I wanted to say one part of the story before I said another part of the story. But once I got to the first statement, I recognized, oh, I didn't say the other part. So I just sort of went back, and of course nobody knows that, but because I know my story, it just flew out. So it was good.
So what was this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
The most painful part. Well, that could make me cry. I think it was like, I didn't really get to talk a lot about my relationship with my brother. And I think that or the reason I didn't was because it was such a short time that I feel like, I wanted more of that relationship, and how do you talk about something when you don't really understand it? So.
Sure. And that may have been a very wise move, just because that direction, like you just said, you don't have a whole lot of time to connect with people or them to you, and keeping it more focused on how they can learn and change for the better based on the thing that you endured is a great way to unify the room and not have to open up some of those other pieces that are maybe more private or reserved for other people that want to go deeper or whatever it might be. So, were you an opener? Were you a closer? Or were you in between?
I was kind of in the middle.
Any advice?
A little closer to the end, but
okay.
Yeah, there was
advice for other people in between?
Pardon me?
Any advice for other people who are in between?
Oh, sit at the front of the stage and watch them. That was really cool. I loved being on the side of the stage, watching the other speakers, and starting to just picture yourself there so that you're calming your nerves a little bit. But that was probably one of the most fascinating parts, was just sitting on the side of the stage knowing, oh my goodness, I'm going to be there in a second. Like, this is big. It was really exciting.
Well, we've been talking to Jessica Dumas. Her talk is called A Remarkable Journey of Identity. And you can find out more about Jessica Dumas at her website, jessicadumas.com, DUMAS, jessicadumas.com, and find out about her workshops, find out about everything that she is doing. And in a moment, actually, you can go to, I should probably say, our notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We will have a link to her website in there. We will also have a link to A Remarkable Journey of Identity, Jessica's TEDx Exchange District talk. And in a moment, we'll be right back with Jessica Dumas and the final word of advice. And we're back with Jessica Dumas. It is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
My turn to go. So the advice that I would share is you definitely want to find as many ways as possible to connect with the audience by sharing personal stories. So, for example, in my talk, I talked about how I'm a mother. It was my day off. I put the kids to bed, kind of use words to describe the setting, to set things up, and but not to be afraid of personal stories, because that's where the authenticity comes out, and that's how people connect to you, right? Is just being open about who you are, what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and that allows others to realize, okay, they're just like me. And so that's a really powerful lesson in any speaking.
Jessica Dumas, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you, Nathan.
And that's a wrap. So awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to bring Deepak in here. Yeah. How was that for you?
It was good. It was good. I appreciate it.
Good deal. Any advice to Deepak over here?
No, I'm sure he's got it.
Right.
He's doing the rosary.
Well done. I did just watch The Nun at the cinema yesterday, so well done, Jessica. That was really great to listen to. So I got a lot from that as well.
Okay, great. Nathan, I'll watch your website and other posts for updates.
All right. Yeah. We're about 8-9 weeks out at this point, and you can share this Facebook Live as well immediately. So take care, Jessica.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day, guys.
See you, Jessica. Bye.
So we have one other guest in this slot, and I'm not quite seeing her out there, but hopefully.
Sure.
It's been an interesting, been a little bit of an interesting week, but it's all good. How are you doing, Deepak?
Nathan, I'm good, man. I'm good.
Awesome.
Just looking forward to us getting into it. And now I've got a true sense. There's nothing like sitting on the sideline as you listen.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, that was prep. Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, we have a good time with that. It's a lot of fun, for sure. All right. Well, I'm not waiting anymore. Let's do this. I like being on the right when I do these interviews, and for whatever reason, this format sticks me over on the right. So I'm gonna walk you over to the green room, and then I'm gonna put you back first, and then it'll put me on the left.
Brilliant.
Where I think I do a little bit better. So. Here I am back on the left.
Where am I?
You're on the right. You're on the right. You'll see how it goes on the broadcast. It just aesthetically, it looks better. We got the logo, behind your head instead of a billion behind my head. That we don't need another logo there. It's just I feel better on the left. One of my guests said, "Well, it's because you're left-handed, right?" I said, "Well, I didn't think about that." I didn't think about that at all. Let's go for a 5 count, Deepak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, we're about even. That's awesome. And all right, where are you, Deepak? Here we go. All right, Deepak Shukla. Am I saying that correct? Shukla?
You got it in one. I'm impressed.
Shukla. Okay, Deepak Shukla is by day an SEO agency owner, and by night, an ultra marathon runner who also talks about relationships, mental health, and his cat, Jenny. I love it. Find him at deepakshukla.com. All right, so that is the bio right there. How your randomness will be your best strength. Which TEDx was it, Deepak?
TEDx Aston in June or July of 2015.
Okay. Aston.
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 Aston. It's near Birmingham in England.
Okay, Aston. Yeah, okay. Very good. Yeah, I almost said Aspen.
No, it's all good.
Aspen, Colorado. Yeah.
That'd be nice. That'd be really nice.
Potato,
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
my gosh.
Exactly.
All right. Hey, any questions before I hit the hot button here?
No, man, I'm just impressed. This is very cool. Seeing it kind of in action and the setup and the smoothness and how you put it together with the text and the other stuff. And no questions, just more of a comment that I'm impressed.
Well, hey, as the SEO agency owner, I'd like to see what you do to extra promote this, because it's content marketing, it's promotion, it's media kit stuff. It's really, a second or a third win for all of us that have given great branded talks, and it's more of a victory lap. So I'd love to maybe offline talk a little bit about some of that stuff, because that's not that's not been a strength for me. I just haven't put the time in. So I'd love to hear.
Oh, it's okay. Nathan, let's talk about that off air then.
Cool.
Yeah. All
right. And those of us joining us live, that's some great PR for Deepak here. SEO,
hey guys.
Man, we gotta think, man. This isn't the 90s anymore. This is time for SEO. Yes. Oh, there's Jenny the cat.
Yes.
Well, if I wanted to, I think Cole the dog is over there, but I'm not gonna show everybody my messy room here. All right, everybody. Okay, we're gonna jump in here, and we're gonna jump in 3, 2. We are live with Deepak Shukla. Deepak, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Nathan. Let's do it.
Deepak Shukla is by day an SEO agency owner, and by night, he's an ultra marathon runner who also talks about relationships, mental health, and his cat, Jenny. You can find him at deepakshukla.com. Deepak Shukla, welcome to the talk.
Nathan, I'm excited to be here, buddy, and really happy to be getting into it. So thank you for having me on your show.
Deepak, your talk is called How Your Randomness Will Be Your Best Strength. And you come out on the stage, you ask, what separates us? And from watching all of this, the most interesting thing, other than the ultra marathon piece, not just even the triathlon or the marathon, but the ultra marathon piece, is the fact that apparently you had never, up until 1 week before your first triathlon, get this, you had only ridden a stationary bike. You had never ridden a real bike. Is that true? That is mind blowing. Differentiate. My first Ironman, which is the long distance triathlon, I, for example, didn't understand the distinction between a road bike and a mountain bike. So I just thought, well, I'll just train in the gym. I turned up a week out in South Africa. So you go for a little bit of time. And I turned up to the rental place to get the bicycle. And then I discovered that there's these things called cleats. I didn't know what they were. And after falling off the bike a couple of times with the cleats, he surmised that, Deepak, we're going to put strap-ons on and you're going to just pedal like you would with your running shoes. So yeah, that was how my first Ironman started. This is like a rite of passage for many of us, is like your mom or your dad, or your uncle or somebody takes you on the bike and you go and they go, wee, and then they take off one of the training wheels and then they take off the other and then you fall and skin your knee. So you hadn't done that yet.
I had been on, I'd ridden a bike. I'd been on mountain bikes. I'd been on those kinds of bikes. So I knew how to kind of ride in the straight direction. But I'd never been on a bike that you use in triathlons with the skinny tires, and then the gears were different. So I guess that I'd been on a mountain bike. I just never been on a road bike. And for the entire duration of my training, the only thing I ever did was on a stationary bike in the gym. So my first time riding in 3 months was actually at the Ironman, which was quite a weird experience.
My word. So now the Ironman, I'm going to camp out there even longer. It starts with the bike, or it starts with the swim?
Absolutely. So it's a swim, bike, and then run. The swim's like 3.9. Yeah, exactly.
Swim, bike, run. So you swam miles, and now it's time to easy street, get on the bike. Not really, because now you've got the funny 20 gears. It's a real road bike, and you're probably going a whole lot faster than you did on the mountain bike, and you're all wobbly because you were swimming and kicking for all that. So how'd you get through?
I mean, you know what? I think that we spoke about when we're younger. I think that there's a beautiful kind of naivety that sometimes serves us, and that does encourage randomness in our lives. And that, you know what, if you overthink things, it's incredibly easy to talk yourself out of doing almost anything, because you can, as humans, we have a tendency to focus on what's our risk, what's our downside, how can we mitigate that, and by doing that, I think we kind of undersell our ability in terms of what we can actually do and what we can get through. And this event clearly was about getting through it, as opposed to actually getting any kind of world-beating time. So yeah, no, it was the whole event was nerve-wracking. It was wild, and you know, I'm really glad in some respects that I wasn't aware of the kind of training that you need to do, because maybe I never would have even entered the thing if I thought, wow, I need to do all of this. So yeah, it was it certainly was an adventure, especially with the way that other people reacted to me when they saw me getting on my running sneakers as I was getting onto the bike, and the kind of responses that you get, verbal and non-verbal. Yeah, they still have left a memory in my mind.
So last week, I interviewed another two-time Ironman, Rob
Amazing.
Mitchell-James, who is, I believe, in the UK as well.
Okay,
and
brilliant.
I mean, there's some real tie-ins between, you know, it's kind of like giving a TED Talk or a TEDx or another branded talk, such as these. And I hear that from some of the people I interview, is like they walked out on stage, they thought they prepared, they walked out on stage, they got through it, they gave a good job, they gave a good effort, and it was that same framework of, okay, I jump and I build my wings on the way down, and I get through it, and I complete it, and now I'm part of this nice, you know, exclusive club. And there are others of us out there. I'm kind of in the latter group. I like to hang out with people that jump and build their wing. I'm a little more analytical than that. So you gave your talk for people like me. We're sitting on the sidelines saying, "Oh, Deepak, I could never do an Ironman, or I could never do a marathon, or whatever." And you're sitting there, "I can't either, but I'm just going to keep pedaling until this is done, or I'm going to keep running until this is done, or I'm going to keep talking until my 15 minutes are done up there on the stage." So what I guess the question for you, from all us hesitant analytical perfectionist or recovering perfectionist types to someone like you that you just jump in, what do you do in that bleep moment in your head, right? Because you've got those too. It's just you've got that in the middle of your process. The rest of us have that at the beginning of our process, which is why a lot of times we don't start, or we take a long time to start. You get the bleep moment in the middle of what. So what do you do in that moment? How do you recoach yourself so that you can keep putting one foot in front of the other and complete, and in at least a fairly respectable way, whether it's that or doing an SEO campaign for somebody or doing anything else that you do?
Absolutely. I think that one of the things that happens when we have any kind of fight or flight moments, or moments of panic, hesitancy, whatever kind of synonym you want to, or adjective you want to give it, I think that one of the things that we also do expertly, that, you know, falls under the umbrella of self-sabotage, is we attach a lot of energy to negative emotions, and we make it our core root of focus. So one of the things that I have become mindful of, and this is a lot about it. So mindfulness has been big for me. I can almost preempt those feelings of massive fear when I'm beginning to get a cramp in my leg, or I'm not even really fit enough, or I feel that, you know, this course track is a lot harder than I envisioned. And any variation of that, it's just kind of allowing the feeling of fear to be there, and allowing it to wash over and kind of past me, and just accept that, okay, it's okay. And I find that has been a really big thing for me, that, you know, when you do step out and start doing couple of things that are outside of your comfort zone, you begin to learn to read your own signs, and you begin to discover through the act of just small wins. So a small win for someone who'd say, Deepak, there's no way in hell I'm ever going to do an Ironman, or there's no way I could possibly compete. I would say, okay, you know, cycle to your local liquor store, and then, you know, walk up to the swimming pool, swim one lap, and then run back home, or some kind of, it's you know, starting as long as you activate that feeling of fear, then for me that's the best training. And it's something that's, you know, reminiscent of, it's often shown in the military. You know, we do it with our special forces, the continual re-exposure to spaces of kind of acute fear, and then beginning to recondition yourself. So I think that that has been a really big thing that often helps me in those moments where, you know, I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I'm like, okay, the water's not burning me. Actually, it's just pretty warm, but I can sit here and live with the heat.
That's powerful, because I've interviewed people, and we have usually some variation of this, and it's occurring to me, you've got Teflon, and some of us out here in Talk Universe, we're kind of more Velcro. So it's kind of like what we said when we were little kids. I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever I say bounces off of me. Whatever you say, it bounces off of me and it sticks to you. But it's the reverse of that. And it's a mindset thing, because what you're saying is, okay, so you're jumping off a building, rappelling off a building or whatever. You intellectually know you're safe, but it's still really scary because you're physiologically reacting, yet you know you're safe, for example, and you let what you just said, you let the feeling wash over you. It's almost like a surfer, and that wave current just washes right past you. You're not going to take that one, goes right past you, and there you still are, and you can be mindful, and you can choose to move forward with your purpose, or you can let the wave and the current of the assigned story and the emotions and why that brings up all the failures and junk and guilt and all, and then that thing sucks you into the undertow. Or you can just let it pass and just keep doing what you were going to do. And you know that wave is part of the fear, success, victory process.
Absolutely. I completely agree, Nathan. And, a lot of the time you're going to get pulled under. And it needs, and what's important in those stages is that, did I drown better yesterday than I did the day before that? How is it that you fail? Do you fail? And kind of one of the things that we also often do is that we get into very black and white thinking, and we think that, okay, well, I just failed and everything's bad. And then what we fail to do is kind of, we don't self-audit and think, well, how much better am I today than I was versus 3 months ago? Have I actually got better? Even though I missed that wave completely and I landed on my bum and I've got whiplash because the wave was so big and all of this kind of variation, but you're like, wow, 3 months ago, I would never even consider taking that wave. I would never even had to, well, what does that tell me? Well, my balance has gotten a bit better. My core stability's improved. And we fail to activate that kind of part of the process. And we need that sometimes because it keeps you on that path. Because what often happens with any level of kind of growth is that we try once, we might even try a second time, we fail both times, but then we just don't try again. And it becomes another kind of fireside conversation. Oh, I've been thinking about doing, or I was considering, or some kind of variation of that. So that's where the, a naivety, does actually serve you in other spaces of your life, because doing something like, the Iron Man has helped me live out the randomness of my life, because it, me getting through that has made me feel so much more powerful when I walk into other situations, because I think I have a great point of comparison, but I also understand what it's like to kind of go down the, SHITTER, so to speak. And it's like, okay, well, we got to do what we got to do.
We've been enjoying this conversation with Deepak Shukla, and his talk is called How Your Randomness Will Be Your Best Strength. It was at TEDx Aston in the UK, and we are going to enjoy more of this conversation over in the Blitz Round in just a moment. And we're back with Deepak Shukla. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm about to ask Deepak a series of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent TEDx Aston talk. Are you ready, Deepak?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
First off, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was invited on LinkedIn.
Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
Improviser.
How does that work for? I mean, did I even need to ask you that question? Seriously, Talk Universe, you're thinking, oh, no brainer. So that worked for you. You finished. You.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on improvising rather than memorizing?
I think that improvising is a bit of a. So improvising is improvising is a form of memorization. This is what people don't really necessarily appreciate. My improvisation skills are built upon hundreds of impromptu speeches that allow me to build intuition, and intuition is built upon obviously lots of. So at that time, I went to the pub just before I was going to do my speech. I had 2 or 3 beers with my buddy, and I began scribbling notes on the inside of my palm. But what I was able to draw upon was all of the other experiences that I've walked into historically. And really, I always think that improvisation is a skill that's been built out of actual, memories. So that's what the process was like for me, and I think that's where it comes from.
What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
I find that when you're nervous, it's very easy to forget your lines, so to speak. So one of the things that I will do, and you can actually see it on my speech if you look very carefully, is I'll write one letter for a certain section of my speech on my palm. So I'd have like G, C, and F to outline the 3 areas that I'm going to go through. And that G, C, and F will keep me on track and keep me going. So that has been very useful for me in any kind of speech I do where I'm nervous.
All right. So Talk Universe. So basically tattoo the inside of your palm and get some crib notes for yourself, basically, I suppose. Now, I skipped over this question. You walk out there. Did you have nerves? Were you in the zone? Neither or both?
I definitely had nerves. I'd never spoke at that time on a stage like that before. So that, as well as the preparation with the calls back and forth I did with the kind of TEDx organizers, told me that they really, really cared. And, it sounds obvious, but you only really appreciate it when you're in the situation. So definitely was nervous. Once you get started, starting is the hardest, as with anything. And my speech started with star jumps because someone dared me. So once we'd done that, I kind of got over myself, and that was very helpful.
Last question. What is your advice to the person listening to this who says, I could never give a branded talk?
I think that find a story that is interesting and practice the delivery of it. I think it begins there. I mean, you only need to impress one person, and who knows where you'll end up. And it doesn't mean you need to practice a 15-minute speech. You could have a 5-minute story that's really compelling, and that can be enough. So I'd say that it's about purposeful practice. So purposeful practice is the key thing I think that a lot of people don't do.
We've been enjoying the Blitz Round with Deepak Shukla. His talk is called How Your Randomness Will Be Your Best Strength. You can go to our show notes page at bethetalk.com. We will have a link there, or you can type it into YouTube, as well as we want you to check out Deepak Shukla's website at deepakshukla.com, DeepakShukla, deepakshukla.com. And we'll be back with Deepak Shukla in just a moment for the 10-second final word of advice. And we're back for the final word of advice with Deepak Shukla. What is it?
Just ask. If you want to actually become a branded speaker, ask, reach out. Nothing will come from nothing. Start there.
Deepak Shukla, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Oh, Nathan, thank you. And thank you to the audience at Talk Universe.
All right, that's a wrap.
Dude,
thanks, everybody. Oh, my gosh, this is great. Hey, folks, there are a few of you online. Any questions for Deepak or myself, just go ahead and type them out. Got a little bit of a strange situation right now because we have a break before the 11 o'clock crew. We have 4 more people joining us at 11. We're supposed to have a third, a fourth, a fifth this hour, and 2 of them had issues ahead of time, and I don't know where the third is. So one of the fun things about Be Live that isn't very fun is I'm kind of beholden to this link. And I think if I end the broadcast, which is what I'm going to do if we don't have any questions anyway, going to end that broadcast. The good news for Jessica and Deepak, they've got a much tighter shareable asset that they can share without like 5 people or 10 people in it that otherwise would have been the case, which is great. And what I'm going to do is get to send out another email to the rest of the guests here today. It's like, come on, Be Live. Can't you do this a little bit differently. And I recently learned not to schedule a broadcast, because if you wait more than 10 minutes to hit the recording button, it's like it doesn't let you on. And then the link is dead for everybody else. And then you really look bad. So anyway, good deal. So what we're going to do here, folks, we are going to go offline here with Deepak. Deepak and I are going to chat for a minute or so, and then we're going to be back with you to rock and roll at 11 o'clock. Take care, everybody.
See you guys.